All right, welcome to another study of the book of Ezekiel, the scrolls of Ezekiel. We are covering chapters 9 through 12 tonight. And I want to preface tonight's study by saying I encourage everyone to look at this as spiritually as you possibly can, because these chapters are very descriptive about the different things that we are going to be reading. Of course, spiritual, we see things that took place back then and what is to come. So that's what I say. That's what I mean when I say look at it from a spiritual standpoint and not a physical. There's a lot to dig into, but as usual, I'm just gonna do a brief overview of what we've been talking about as far as the timeline. And it's week 3, and I'm still a little bit perplexed as it relates to what the true timeline of these scrolls are. I'm gonna share why later on throughout the study, but as it stands, there's still two different interpretations of the time when Ezekiel was speaking throughout each of these chapters. And one thing I wanted to mention tonight, I'm just going to read this really quick. We have two opposing thoughts that may come up as you go through this study. And that's that when the Most High shows patience, which he does massively, it is tempting to doubt his willingness to judge. But when he finally comes in judgment, it can cause us to question his mercy. And I say that because a lot of times, if you don't know your biblical history, if you don't know the purpose behind everything that he did and what his end goal has always been, you are going to look at him as a judgmental and mean Elohim or mean God. But if you understand, you are going to know how often he's been merciful, how often he has been patient. And um, you understand that that long suffering, that fruit that he bears and has been bearing all of this time, does have an endpoint as well. So just wanted to share that. And we are again in this portion between chapters 1 through 24, according to the other timeline, where Jerusalem must fall. And that's why it's very spiritual in nature, because it also points to us as his people now, those who are in covenant, those who should be in covenant and are not, and those who are completely turned away from him altogether. So that's where we are. As I mentioned last week, chapters 8 through 11 display the necessity of the destruction of Jerusalem and of Judah, of the tribe of Judah, and of the Israelites as a whole, and what their idolatry and adultery has led to, as well as chapter 12 is just signs and warnings of judgment. Chapter 12 goes into start speaking against the idolaters, and then next week we'll talk about chapter 13, the false prophets and prophetesses, or false, the women who also speak. All right, so let me get out of here. Okay, and with that being said, we are going to jump into chapter 9. Liz, thank you for volunteering to read. You can go ahead and oh, I hadn't read that. Thank you. You can go ahead and read the whole chapter.
Okay. Then he called out in my hearing. Oh, wait. Yes, it is in KJV. Sorry, because I'm looking down at my Bible,
Yes,
but I
yes.
see it is. Okay, okay. Just kidding. Let me continue.
All
Sorry.
right.
Then he called out in my hearing with a loud voice, saying, "Let those who have charge over the city draw near, each with a deadly weapon in his hand." And suddenly 6 men came from the direction of the upper gate. The number of men, which faces north, each with his battle axe in his hand. One man among them was clothed with linen and had a writer's inkhorn at his side. they went in and stood beside the bronze altar. Now the glory of the Most High of Israel had gone up from the cherub, where it had been, to the threshold of the temple. And he called to the man clothed with linen, who had the writer's inkhorn at his side. And the Adon said to him, Go through the midst of the city, through the midst of Jerusalem, and put a mark on the foreheads of the men who sigh and cry over all the abominations that are done within it. To the others he said in my hearing, Go after him through the city and kill. Do not let your eyes spare, nor have any pity. Utterly slay old and young men, maidens and little children and women, but do not come near anyone on whom is the mark, and begin at my sanctuary. So they began with the elders who were before the temple. Then he said to them, Defile the temple and fill the courts with the slain. Go out. And they went out and killed in the city. So it was that while they were killing them, I was left alone, and I fell on my face and cried out and said, O Adon Elohim, will you destroy all the remnant of Israel in pouring out your fury on Jerusalem? Then he said to me, The iniquity of the house of Israel and Judah is exceedingly great, and the land is full of bloodshed, and the city full of perversity. For they say, The Adon has forsaken the land, and the Adon does not see. And as for me also, my eye will neither spare nor will I have pity, but I will recompense their deeds on their own head. Just then, the man clothed with linen, who had the inkhorn at his side, reported back and said, I have done as you commanded me.
All right. So only 11 verses here, but we're going to cover a lot because this chapter parallels with Revelation. It parallels with Leviticus, and it just has a lot of symbolism to it. So I'm going to share a few graphics as well, because from what we see in the beginning, this is literally the Most High calling on his angels. And a thought came to me, and we're gonna talk about who these angels may have been. But yes, exactly. This is what's happening in the second coming. So this is very, very spiritual, very apocalyptic. And that's why I want to take my time with this particular chapter. So starting from the first two verses, we have, I'm sorry, give me 1 second. Sorry. All right. So in the first two verses, you see that the Most High is calling 6 men, right? So he has 6 men he's calling plus one that is clothed in linen and has a writer's inkhorn at his side. This angel is being told to go into the city and put a mark on those who have been crying, sighing, and crying over all of the abominations that are done within the city of Jerusalem. Who are those? Those are his people. Those are his elect. Those are the ones who are obviously keeping the commandments, as we've been talking, right? We've been talking about we spoke about the honey taking in eating the scrolls and them tasting like honey and then going bitter in your belly, as in you seeing the world around you and that feeling of disgust towards the world, or that burden to speak out and speak the word. That's us. That's the people who are endeavoring to be walking as Messiah walked and keeping his commandments and the testimony of Messiah. So those are those who that angel was instructed to put the mark on their foreheads. I thought about Revelations, and I know that, well, Liz just said the 6 watchers, but I also thought about Revelations. And I have this whole section here. So I'm going to read it because I think it's significant. Um, so here we go. I was in the Spirit on the Most High's day, and I heard behind me a loud voice as of a trumpet saying, I am the Alpha and Omega, the first and the last, the Aleph and the Tav. And what you see, write in a book and send it to the seven churches which are in Asia, to Ephesus, to Smyrna, to Pergamos, to Thyatira, to Sardis, to Philadelphia, and to Laodicea. Then I turned to see the voice that spoke with me, and having turned, I saw seven golden lampstands. And in the midst of the seven lampstands, one like the Son of Man, clothed with a garment down to the feet, and girded about the chest with a golden band. His head and hair were white like wool, as white as snow, and his eyes like a flame of fire. His feet were like fine brass, and if as if refined in a furnace, and his voice as the sound of many waters. He had in his right hand seven stars. Out of his mouth went a sharp two-edged sword, and his countenance was like the sun shining in its strength. And when I saw him, I fell at his feet as dead. But he laid his right hand on me, saying to me, Do not be afraid. I am the first and the last. I am he who lives and was dead, and behold, I am alive forevermore. Amen. And I have the keys of Hades and of death. Write the things which you have seen, and the things which are, and the things which will take place after this. The mystery of the seven stars which you saw in my right hand, and the seven golden lampstands. The seven stars are the angels of the seven churches, and the seven lampstands which you saw are the seven churches. Now, again, I know that this is speaking of six angels plus the seventh, and the seventh being the one that marks everyone, and then the six are the ones that go around and kill, do the work of the Most High. But I for some reason this chapter, that passage stood out to me as a possibility that this could be connected with those seven angels that are spoken of here. There was another portion I had here in Revelation 14:7. So it says, saying with a loud voice, Fear Elohim and give glory to him, for the hour of his judgment has come, and worship him who made heaven and earth, the sea and springs of water. Yes, yes, I know, Liz. I know the watchers are the angels. I'm just saying because it's six and then one kind of, I don't know if you want to say leading them, or head over them, because it's dividing basically like seven angels over, like one angel over each church, so to speak. But I still feel like it's connected. So I also have Leviticus 16 here, verses 3 to 4, and the reason why is because of what this other angel was wearing. So thus Aaron shall come into the holy place with the blood of a young bull as a sin offering, and of a ram as a burnt offering. He shall put the holy linen tunic and the linen trousers on his body, and shall be girded with a linen sash, and with a linen turban he shall be attired. These are holy garments. Therefore he shall wash his body in water and put them on. Yes, they are also called destroying angels. But what I wanted to point out with this in particular, I'm not sure what the other six were wearing, but the one with the writing kit was wearing priestly garments, which goes to show us that the Most High from the beginning was instructing his high priest to wear his heavenly attire, just as a representation of his kingdom. And we're gonna go into the ephod later on as well, and the connections with the stones, because of course the priest would wear that as well. And there's a lot of different well, I'll let that be explained once we get to chapter 10. Yes, yes, Messiah himself wears linen. So yeah, that's it justifies even more why and I actually had that here, our Melchizedek, our high priest, that's the same attire that he was wearing. So it just justifies more why we should be mindful of the garments that we wear as well, what we put on our bodies. Okay, and then we have Ezekiel 21, 3-4, and it says, "And say to the land of Israel, thus says the Adon, Behold, I am against you, and I will draw my sword out of its sheath and cut off both righteous and wicked from you. Because I will cut off both righteous and wicked from you, therefore my sword shall go out of its sheath against all flesh from south to north." And this, I was connecting this with also with the direction that the angels were coming out of, which I believe it's in verse 2, how they came out from the direction of the upper gate, which faces north. And I wanted to show, let me go back here to the presentation. So I just wanted to show this visual of the temple. This is the east gate. This is the west, and then we have the north and the south over here. Obviously, this is probably not accurate 100%, but a depiction of it. We have another picture here of what the temple, Solomon's temple might have looked like. This is the altar that the six angels stood by. And interestingly enough, they were by the brazen altar where sacrifices actually took place. And then, so they came from the north. So that was this area over here. And again, like I said, this is the east gate. And then we have another visual here. So these are the guards. Bring the guards, angels of the city. This is something that I found online, obviously, but we know that these are angels. So that's another reason why I believe that Revelations 1, that passage in Revelations 1, does also connect with the seven stars, the seven angels. And again, so this is the brazen altar, and it's said to start with the elders, start with the priests. So, and I know that we've talked about this before too. If non-believers are going to be judged, um, how much more his people who are proclaiming his name and his truth, you know? Angels coming in like se pudren, exactly. That's exactly what's gonna happen. Scary enough and very, very real when we really consider what's to come, you know? I have Revelation 7 here, but let me see where I had it written down. Oh, okay. So Revelation 7, 1-17. This is a very long passage as well. I'm not sure. Let me see if I just want to read some highlights here. Oh, I can't find the little scroll. There we go. No, that's not working. Sorry. Hold on 1 second. Okay. All right. So this is, if you want to write this down just for reference, this connects with verse 3. No, verse 4. I'm sorry. And this, of course, this is about the mark, marking his people. And so I'll read from 9, and it says, after these things, I looked, and behold, a great multitude which no one could number, of all nations, tribes, peoples, and tongues, standing before the throne and before the Lamb, clothed with white robes, with palm branches in their hands, and crying with a loud voice, saying, Salvation belongs to our Elohim, who sits on the throne, and to the Lamb. All the angels stood around the throne, and the elders and the four living creatures, and fell on their faces before the throne and worshiped the Elohim, saying, Amen. Blessed and glory and wisdom, thanksgiving and honor and power and might be to our Ahaya forever and ever. Amen. Then one of the elders answered, saying to me, Who are these arrayed in white robes, and where did they come from? And I said to him, Sir, you know. So he said to me, These are the ones who come out of the great tribulation and washed their robes and made them white in the blood of the Lamb. Therefore, they are before the throne of the Elohim and serve him day and night in his temple. And he who sits on the throne will dwell among them. They shall neither hunger no more anymore, nor thirst anymore. The sun shall not strike them, nor any heat, for the Lamb who is in the midst of the throne will shepherd them and lead them to living fountains of waters. And the Elohim will wipe away every tear from their eyes. So, again, this is just another confirmation or connection as far as his people, those who have washed their robes, who are not naked in sin, because we know nakedness represents being in sin, and the ones who are covered with those white robes are not that, not are against that, or not following those ways. All right, so continuing, we have an example here of a vision that David had. And this is in 2 Samuel 22, verses 7 through 20. And it says, in my distress, I called upon the Adon and I cried out to my Elohim. He heard my voice from his temple, and my cry entered his ears. Then the earth shook and trembled. The foundations of heaven quaked and were shaken, because he was angry. Smoke went up from his nostrils, and devouring fire from his mouth. Coals were kindled by it. He bowed the heavens also, and came down with darkness under his feet. He rode upon a cherub and flew, and he was seen upon the wings of the wind. He made darkness canopies around him, dark waters and thick clouds of the skies. From the brightness before him, coals of fire were kindled. The Adon thundered from heaven, and the Most High uttered his voice. He sent out arrows and scattered them, lightning bolts, and he vanquished them. Then the channels of the sea were seen, the foundations of the world were uncovered. At the rebuke of the Most High, at the blast of the breath of his nostrils, he sent from above. He took me, he drew me out of many waters. He delivered me from my strong enemy, from those who hated me, for they were too strong for me. They confronted me in the day of my calamity, but the Adon was my support. He also brought me out into a broad place. He delivered me because he delighted in me. So this again is another example of what he showed, what he has displayed in his glory to his elect, to those who he's chosen to share it with, and it all aligns together. So we're gonna read later on, and I think it's actually in chapter 10, about the cherubim and the coal that is in the midst of them, and what that angel is instructed to do. So it's just we see, as we read through, again, as we read through these chapters, we see his wrath, but I also want us to remember his patience and his enduring love for us, because this is just a result of iniquity and of rebellion. All right, so continuing, we have another connection to verse 4. This is Revelation 9:4, and it says, they were commanded not to harm the grass of the earth or any green thing or any tree, but only those men who do not have the seal of the Elohim on their foreheads. So just a reminder that this is extremely important. And if you have watched any of the studies on the channel Become Set Apart, you know that there is the belief that the mark of the Most High is keeping his commandments and keeping his Shabbat. So keeping his Sabbath, remembering the Sabbath day to keep it holy, commandment number 4. Entering into that rest with him on a weekly basis so that we are able to enter into the eternal rest with him as well. And then also we have Revelation 15, 6 through 8. And it says, out of the temple came the seven angels having the seven plagues, clothed in pure bright linen and having their chests girded with golden bands. What does that sound like? Sounds like the priestly garments, right? And again, like the man in linen with the writing kit. Then one of the four living creatures gave to the seven angels seven golden bowls full of the wrath of the Elohim who lives forever and ever. The temple was filled with smoke from the glory of the Elohim and from his power, and no one was able to enter the temple till the seven plagues of the seven angels were completed. More and more, this reminds me or tells me that this is connected to this vision that Ezekiel had, and more confirmation that he was speaking about end time prophecy than anything else. All right, and let's see what else we have. We have Psalm 119:36, and it says, rivers of water run down from my eyes because men do not keep your law. This is exactly what he is talking about with those men or those individuals who grieve and lament over all the detestable things that are done in the city, just in general, generally speaking. But I think this pretty much sums up the way all of us feel when we look at the ways of this world and everything that is happening. We also have 1 Peter 4:17 that says, for the time has come for judgment to begin at the house of the Elohim. And I just said this, and if it begins with us first, what will be the end of those who do not obey the gospel of the Most High? That's a hard pill to swallow, to realize that it is going to begin with us, and our judgment is going to be harsh, of course, right? But when you think about it, it's going to be even more hefty for the ones who choose not to obey him at all. All right, and I included this here when the Most High said it is finished, when Messiah said it is finished, because I don't know. I don't know about you, but for verse 11, it really reminded me of this angel coming back to him and saying, I have done as you commanded me. That was just why I included it there for verse 11. And then we spoke about this last week, Ezekiel 6:10, that says, and they shall know that I am the Most High. I have not said in vain that I would bring this calamity upon them. That applies to this chapter as a whole, but also verse 10, which says, and as for me also, my eye will neither spare nor will I have pity, but I will recompense their deeds on their own head. Over and over again, he says, like, I have none of this is in vain. I have been talking to you all. I've been warning you all. I've sent my prophets. I gave you commandments to follow. I gave you instructions for how you should be living your life. None of what I am doing, none of the calamity that has come upon you now is for naught. It's not in vain at all. Liz shared Romans 6:23 that says, for the wages of sin is death, but the gift of the Elohim is eternal life in Christ, our Most High. Amen. Amen. Our Abba is perfect and even more so in his judgment. Yes, Jessica. Amen to that. All right, so some connections with the last portion, verses 9 through 11. We have 2 Chronicles 36:14 through 16 that says, moreover, all the leaders of the priests and the people transgressed more and more according to all the abominations of the nations, and defiled the house of the Adon, which he had consecrated in Jerusalem. And the Adon Elohim of their fathers sent warnings to them by his messengers, rising up early and sending them, because he had compassion on his people and on his dwelling place. But they mocked the messengers of the Elohim, despised his words, and scoffed at his prophets. until the wrath of the Adon arose against his people, till there was no remedy. That pretty much sums it up too, right? I mean, I love how scripture confirms scripture, and there's no way around what he says he will do. Um, whether good or bad, because we're looking at all of the judgment, but we also know the blessings that are included in the word as well, right? Leviticus 20, I think it was 26 that we were in last week, and Deuteronomy 28, and then everything else that Messiah said as he was walking on this earth. Exactly. And he's not a man that he should lie, or the son of man that he should repent. So it just goes to show that it's all throughout his word, what would happen, should you do this or should you not. Then we also have Matthew 25, verses 35 to 37, which says, "For I was hungry and you gave me food. I was thirsty and you gave me drink. I was a stranger and you took me in. I was naked and you clothed me. I was sick and you visited me. I was a prisoner and you came to me." Then the righteous will answer him, saying, "Adon, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you drink?" Um, let me see. I don't know who I was referring to here, because I have it in the last portion, but I would say this more so ties into the beginning of the chapter and what his remnant is doing for the people. So continuing, we have Zephaniah, Micah 7, and then lastly, Revelation 16, 17. So Zephaniah 3, verses 1 through 4 says, "Woe to her who is rebellious and polluted, to the oppressing city. She has not obeyed his voice. She has not received correction. She has not trusted in the Adon. She has not drawn near to her Elohim. Her princes in her midst are roaring lions. Her judges are evening wolves that leave not a bone till morning. Her prophets are insolent, treacherous people. Her priests have polluted the sanctuary. They have done violence to the law." And then Micah 7, 3, verses 3 through 4. "That they may successfully do evil with both hands, the prince asks for gifts, the judge seeks a bribe, and the man utters his evil desire. So they scheme together. The best of them is like a briar. The most upright is sharper than a thorn hedge. The day of your watchman and your punishment comes. Now shall be their perplexity." So this speaks to the leaders in the land, and all the bribes, the backhand type of dealings that they were doing of corruption, defiling the temple as it was, and going against his word altogether. Lastly, I have Revelation 16, 17 for this chapter, and it says, "Then the seventh angel poured out his bowl into the air, and a loud voice came out of the temple of heaven from the throne, saying, 'It is done.'" So again, this is another connection to verse 11. It is finished. It is done. I have done as you commanded. So just something to think about there, and the judgment that is to come. With that being said, who is able to read chapter 10 for us?
I can.
Okay, thank you. Just trying to see where to have you stop. The thing is, all of this is about the cherubim and the temple, so you can go ahead and read the whole chapter.
Okay.
Thank you.
"And I looked, and there in the firmament that was above the head of the cherubim, there appeared something like a sapphire stone, having the appearance of the likeness of a throne. Then he spoke to the man clothed with linen and said, 'Go in among the wheels under the cherub, fill your hands with coals of fire from among the cherubim, and scatter them over the city.' And he went in as I watched. Now the cherubim were standing on the south side of the temple when the man went in, and the cloud filled the inner court. Then the glory of the Adon went up from the cherub and paused over the threshold of the temple, and the house was filled with the cloud, and the court was full of the brightness of the Adon's glory. And the sound of the wings of the cherubim was heard even in the outer court, like the voice of Almighty Elohim when he speaks. Whew. Then it happened, when he commanded the man clothed with linen, saying, take fire from among the wheels, from among the cherubim, that he went in and stood beside the wheels. And the cherub stretched out his hand from among the cherubim to the fire that was among the cherubim, and took some of it, and put it into the hands of the man clothed with linen, who took it and went out. The cherubim appeared to have the form of a man's hand under their wings. And when I looked, there were four wheels by the cherubim, one wheel by one cherub, and another wheel by each other cherub. The wheels appeared to have the color of a beryl stone. As for their appearance, all four looked alike, as it were a wheel in the middle of a wheel. When they went toward any of their four directions. They did not turn aside when they went, but followed in the direction of the head was facing. They did not turn aside when they went, and their whole body, with their back, their hands, their wings, and the wheels that the four had, were full of eyes all around. As for the wheels, they were called in my hearing wheel. Each one had four faces. The first face was the face of a cherub. The second face was the face of a man. The third, the face of a lion. And the fourth, the face of an eagle. And the cherubim were lifted up. This was the living creature I saw by the river Kebar. When the cherubim went, the wheels went beside them. And when the cherubim lifted their wings to mount up from the earth, the same wheels also did not turn from beside them. When the cherubim stood still, the wheels stood still. And when one was lifted up, the other lifted itself up, for the spirit of the living creature was in them. Then the glory of the Adon departed from the threshold of the temple and stood over the cherubim. And the cherubim lifted their wings and mounted up from the earth in my sight. When they went out, the wheels were beside them, and they stood at the door of the east gate of the Adon's house, and the glory of the Elohim of Israel was above them. This is the living creature I saw under the Elohim of Israel by the river Kebar, and I knew they were cherubim. Each one had four faces, and each one four wings, and the likeness of the hands of a man was under their wings. And the likeness of their faces was the same as the faces which I had seen by the river Kebar. Their appearance and their persons, they each went straight forward.
So good, so deep. Thank you, Jess. All right. So this is a recap, and also a little more detail because we start hearing about just instructions again that were given to the angel. But a recap of chapter 1, which of course we went into in the first week. But this chapter, I was reading it. I read this chapter probably 3 times this week because each time I would read it, it was like there was just more and more and more and more that I saw. Starting from the first. So just for reference, I read at home out of the NIV. And of course, I also go back and forth comparing translations. From my Bible app, I've actually been reading out of the BSB, which is the Berean Standard Bible. I don't know. I've been liking the way that it's worded there, and it kind of aligns with the KJV and NKJV as well. But we're reading out of the NKJV, so I am going to make a few references of like different wording that I noticed in not just the NIV, but also in chapter 1 itself. So to start out, and I'm sorry, let me look at the chat. Oh, okay, yes. So I'm gonna share. I also have a quick video that I wanted to show. Hopefully the audio, you guys are able to hear the audio of it too. It's basically narrating chapter 1 and like kind of giving a visual of it. But something that Liz mentioned also, it always strikes me when you think about angels, mighty ones, um, little gods, or if you will, they're also stars. They are constellations fixed in the heavens for us to look at as connections that we can make with signs that the Most High is trying to show us. So yeah, it's if you see references to angels in the scriptures, think about them also as stars. Just as Lucifer was called the morning star, the fallen star, um, the fallen angels are fallen stars, so to speak, but the ones that are still in the heavenly realm, it's they also are stars. And we are able to see them. Some shine more brightly than others. Some literally look like wheels. I don't know if, social media shows a lot of depictions of sightings of stars in the sky, and they look literally, I've seen some that look literally like wheels, and yeah, it blows my mind. It's super cool. I've really been trying my best to learn about the luminaries. I have like a bunch of resources. I just have to like sit down and actually go through everything that I have and take my time to go stargazing. So, okay, let's jump into it. So starting with verse 1, we have, of course, the sapphire stone throne having the appearance of the likeness of a throne, um, which is also referenced in other connecting scriptures. So we have Revelations 4:2-3 that says, immediately I was in the spirit, and behold, a throne set in heaven, and one sat on the throne. And he who sat on the throne was like a jasper and a sardius stone in appearance. And there was a rainbow around the throne in appearance like an emerald. So this is what I was talking about with the ephod and everything that is connected with the stones that are on the priestly garments. And as I mentioned as well, I didn't mention this, but we know the priestly garments and that are referenced in Leviticus are also referenced in Ephesians 6. So those garments, those the warfare or the how do you call it? The armor, sorry, that I couldn't get the word out. But the spiritual armor that we are to put on can be akin to the priestly garments that we are to wear. So, let's continue. We also have Ezekiel 1:13. So again, we're gonna go back to Ezekiel 1 in a minute too. I'm not gonna read the whole portion of the about the cherubim because it is long, but here in verse 13 it speaks about the coals. So it says, as for the likeness of the living creatures, their appearance was like burning coals of fire, like the appearance of torches going back and forth among the living creatures. The fire was bright, and out of the fire went lightning. Man, that I don't know, that vision, if you like reading through it and you really get a visual of what you're going to see, or what he was able to see, it's literally four angels, right? Four cherubim with the wheels that are basically following them. They go whatever direction the cherubim is going, and then the like torches of fire connecting them all around the four corners, and then the throne right on top of it with his glory. It's just I could imagine how overwhelming it could feel to experience that. I don't know how we would handle it nowadays if we saw it, but maybe there's a reason why it hasn't been revealed again. So then we also have Revelation 8:5 that says, then the angel took the censer, filled it with fire from the altar, and threw it to earth, and there were noises, thunderings, lightnings, and an earthquake. So this ties in with verse 2, where he was instructed to literally go in among the wheels under the cherub and fill his hands with coals of fire from among the cherubim and scatter them over the city. So you see the connection there again with Revelations and what that's going to look like in a physical sense. Thunderings, lightnings, and an earthquake, or multiple earthquakes for that matter. Then we have Psalm 140:10 that says, "Let burning coals fall upon them. Let them be cast into the fire, into deep pits, that they rise up not again." So this is just another confirmation or connection to what would be happening there. Or what would be happening in that with the coals of fire falling upon the people. So I also have Second Chronicles 5:10-14, and this speaks about the glory of the Most High entering the temple as well. How his glory filled the temple, and we see that in verse 3. No, I'm sorry. Verse 4. Then it's that where it says, "And the house was filled with a cloud, and the court was full of the brightness of the Adon's glory." So here in Second Chronicles, it says, "Nothing was in the ark except the two tablets which Moshe put there at Horeb, when the Adon made a covenant with the children of Israel when they had come out of Egypt. And it came to pass, when the priests came out of the most holy place, for all the priests who were present had sanctified themselves without keeping to their divisions. And the Levites, who were the singers, all those of Asaph and Haman and Jeduthun, with their sons and their brethren, stood at the east end of the altar, clothed in white linen, having cymbals, stringed instruments, and harps, and with them 120 priests sounding with trumpets. Indeed, it came to pass when the trumpeters and singers were as one to make one sound, to be heard in praising and thanking the Adon, and when they lifted up their voice with the trumpets and cymbals and instruments of music and praised the Adon, saying, "For he is good, for his mercy endures forever," that the house of the Adon was filled with a cloud, so that the priests could not continue ministering because of the cloud, for the glory of the Adon filled the house of the Most High. That's so beautiful. And it you see here how as they praised him, as they worshiped him, as they lifted his name up in worship and praise, that you were able to that his glory was able to enter in to the house. The same, yes, the same cloud that guided them in the desert, the same cloud, hi baby, the same cloud that would lead them, or that will be there as his wrath falls. So he's been there from the beginning, he'll be there in the end, and that is one of the physical manifestations of his presence. All right, now I also wanted to mention how in verse 4, I just thought it was interesting how they paused over the threshold of the temple. So the threshold is the door, and I know that Liz has gone into detail about the not trampling over the blood of the threshold, and this is pretty much the threshold, the entrance of the house of his tabernacle. So that would be, let me go back to the visual here. So that would be this area right here. So they were here. The glory of the Elohim goes to the threshold of the temple here at the entrance, and they pause there for a minute. And from there, the cloud fills the temple, and his radiance is overtaking the place. So then we hear or we see in verse 5, from there the sound of the wings of the cherubim um was heard even in the outer court, like the voice of the Almighty Elohim when he speaks. So I don't know. If you think of this visual from the sense of, oh, I'm sorry if you guys are seeing, hold on. How do I exit out of this part? There we go. If you guys think of it as like this whole the whole tabernacle, the whole temple, I guess you can say that Solomon's temple as seen in Jerusalem, as it says up here. Um, Thinking about it in the sense of the whole world, and in a spiritual sense as well, of those who are in the tabernacle, able to enter into the Holy of Holies versus the ones who are in the outer court. Those who will be able to see his glory and those who will only be able to hear it, maybe thinking of it or seeing it in that sense. He'll reveal himself to in a physical manner, perhaps to those who are in covenant, um and those who have ears to hear those who do not have ears to hear will hear that sound but may not recognize it. And there's a connection with that in verse 5 in Isaiah 30 and 30. And it says, the Adon will cause his glorious voice to be heard and show the descent of his arm with indignation of his anger and the flame of a devouring fire with scattering tempests and hailstones. This is again, it ties in with verse 5, but also just this whole portion, I'd say between verses 1 through verses 5. These are all of the connections that I have. So I'm just gonna continue like going through them little by little. Psalm 18, 12 through 13 says, from the brightness before him, his thick clouds passed with hailstones and coals of fire. The Adon thundered from heaven, and the Most High uttered his voice, hailstones and coals of fire. Again and again, we see that of the hailstones, of the coals of fire, and we know that he initially judged with water, and he has yet to judge with the fire that he stated he would. And I don't know if you guys know about the volcano, the Yellowstone volcano, that if it were to erupt, I looked it up with my son, and that volcano would obliterate the entire United States of America. Like there would hardly be any land left over if that volcano were to erupt. So just something to think about there because it's active, and it's not the only one that's active. There are several other volcanoes that are still active, and there are volcanoes that are connected to the Yellowstone volcano, underground as well, that are active. So it would be kind of like a domino effect. And that's the US, but there are several others. Again, I looked this up with my son a couple weeks ago, and I think we saw in Asia, there's two. Um, I don't know if we saw any in Europe, but I believe there were. But again, there's all over the world. There's yes, in Guatemala, and I believe I want to say Chile was another area that we saw. So yeah, that could definitely be one of those physical manifestations that we would recognize as being a spiritual sign, but the world would say, oh, climate control, or what is the terminology that's used? I don't even know right now because I don't pay attention to that as
I
much.
think it's climate change, no?
Is it climate change?
I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah, probably climate change. But yeah, that's what that would be blamed on. Um, but yes, continuing, I also have Isaiah 6, 6 and 7, and it says, then one of the seraphim flew to me, having in his hand a live coal, which he had taken with the tongs from the altar. And he touched my mouth with it and said, behold, this has touched your lips. Your iniquity is taken away and your sin is purged. So this also goes to show that those coals that the angel reached for are purifying coals. We know that that fire, he is the fire. He is the refiner. And if fire rains down from heaven, then who is going to be wiped out? Who is that's gonna be wiped out? It's gonna be those who are global warming. Thank you, Silvana. Yes, yeah, he's warming us up to light us up. Well, I would say, he's going to purge. He's going to purge because if New Jerusalem is going to come down from heaven and inhabit this place, then it has to be holy. It has to be washed and clean. That's why we go through the fire now, so that we are cleansed. So we have those white robes that are mentioned in Revelations. Which takes me to Haggai 2:9 that says, the glory of this latter temple shall be greater than the former, says the Adon of hosts. And in this place I will give peace, says the Adon of hosts. Sorry, my son is here reading his Action Bible and he keeps on showing me a bunch of cool pictures. Wait, what do you want to share? Which one? Oh, he's reading about I believe this is Noah. Hold on. Can you guys see? Oh no, it keeps on blurring out. So you see the rainbow here. I guess he's looking through like everything that I'm saying out loud. He's looking for visuals of it. Go to Ezekiel. Look for the book of Ezekiel and see if you see anything about the angels. All right. So continuing. Let me go now. I'm going to show you all the visuals that I have of the angels. And again, these are just depictions of what people believe based on reading the scriptures that they may have looked like. Oh, actually, let me cover this part first. So if you look at, where do I have it? If you look at verse 9, I'm reading it from the NIV. It says, I looked and I saw beside the cherubim 4 wheels, one beside each of the cherubim. The wheels sparkled like topaz. As for their appearance, 4 of them looked alike. Each was like a wheel intersecting a wheel. So this is talking about the wheels, and we see topaz is, where is it? I think topaz and beryl are the same. I want to say this is beryl is what is being spoken of. Yeah, I have it written here that in other translations, you see beryl stone is the one that's mentioned. But if you look at several others, they show topaz as being the stone. Oh, sorry, topaz is up here as well. So it could have been either of these, I guess. In any case, both stones are mentioned or included in the ephod breastplate. So I just wanted to include that. And again, so we see sapphire is also mentioned, and emerald was also mentioned. I think where we read in Ezekiel that he looked like jasper and emerald, I want to say. So we have jasper here. Funny enough, it looks like blood, and emerald. All right, so this is what I shared one week that the first week when we discussed what the cherubim may have looked like, and also what I have been told is called the ophanim, but you don't really see that in actual scripture. But these are the wheels within the wheel. And so this is the video. Let me see if hopefully it. Let me know if you guys
Every
can
month,
hear.
this Airbnb pays me about $2,700 in semi-passive income. Now, here's the thing. I don't own it.
Can you all hear? Okay. For some reason, it doesn't let me. Hold on. That's so weird. For some reason, it doesn't let me share full screen. Yeah, let me back. No, every time I go full screen, it pauses the.
No, there it is. It's there.
But it's not full, right? Like you see everything else.
Yeah, you see everything else, but you can still see it.
Okay, all right.
In the 30th year, on the 5th day of the 4th month, while I was among the exiled people by the river Kibar, the heavens were opened, and I began to see visions of God. As I was looking, I saw a tempestuous wind coming from the north. There was a huge cloud and flashing fire, surrounded by a bright light. And from the midst of the fire was something that looked like electrum. Within it were what looked like 4 living creatures, and the appearance of each one was like that of a human. Each one had 4 faces and 4 wings. Their faces had this appearance. Each of the 4 had a man's face, with a lion's face on the right, a bull's face on the left, and each of the 4 had an eagle's face. That is how their faces were. Their wings were spread out above them. Each had 2 wings that were touching one another, and 2 wings covering their bodies. They would each go straight forward, going wherever the Spirit would incline them to go. They would not turn as they went. And the living creatures had the appearance of burning coals of fire, and something that looked like torches of bright fire was moving back and forth between the living creatures, and lightning was flashing out from it. When the living creatures would go forth, return. Their movement had the appearance of flashes of lightning. As I was watching the living creatures, I saw one wheel on the earth beside each of the living creatures with 4 faces. Wheels and their structure appeared to glow like chrysolite. The 4 of them looked alike. Their appearance and structure looked as though a wheel were within a wheel. When they moved, they could go in any of the 4 directions without turning as they went. Their rims were so high that they inspired awe, and the rims of all 4 were full of eyes all around. Whenever the living creatures moved, the wheels would move along with them. When the living creatures were lifted up from the earth, the wheels would also be lifted up. They would go where the Spirit inclined them to go. Wherever the Spirit went, wheels would be lifted up together with them, for the Spirit operating on the living creatures was also in the wheels. Over the heads of the living creatures was the likeness of an expanse that sparkled like awesome ice stretched out above their heads. Above the expanse that was over their heads was what looked like a sapphire stone, and it resembled a throne. Sitting on the throne up above was someone whose appearance resembled that of a human. I saw something glowing like electrum that was like a fire radiating from what appeared to be his waist and upward. And from his waist down, I saw something that resembled fire. There was a brilliance all around him, like that of a rainbow in a cloud on a rainy day. That was how the surrounding brilliant light appeared. It was like the appearance of the glory of Jehovah. When I saw it, I fell face down and began to hear the voice of someone speaking.
Why are you
Pretty cool, right? Let me go back over here. Oh, wait, actually.
not investing in tax
Oh.
liens?
Sorry, I got stuck for a second. I hope that helped. Liz shared a picture with me that I am going to try to add here. Let me see if I can. I have to stop my share again. He is so cool. Abba is so cool. Um, I wanted to see how I can pull up that picture. Maybe I can just share it. Like, let me see. This is just another visual. Ah, yes, I can. Okay, so going back to the stars being constellations, we see how how the four wheels all looked alike. Their structure was like a wheel within a wheel. Um, we see the frame, or I'm sorry, the rim, the frame, the signs or the eyes being the um constellations, or what the world calls the zodiac signs, which all have a representation for different things in the luminaries. And then this is about the throne, right? So here, high above the throne, was a form that appeared to be a man, and from his waist down, I saw something that looked like the appearance of a rainbow. So this is just another, we see it down here, the rainbow throne, 24 stars falling before the throne. And this is also ties in, like it says here. I'm thinking the same of John's vision of the heavenly throne and the living creatures, as well as the 24 elders that sang holy, holy, holy all day and all night. Thank you for this, Liz. This is a good supplement as well. All right, so continuing a few other connections here. We have Matthew 24:34 through 35, and it says, assuredly, I say to you, this generation will by no means pass away till all these things take place. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will by no means pass away. So we know, like Liz mentioned earlier, and that's scripture, that he is not a man that he should lie, nor the son of man that he should repent. So everything that he says, he will do. Everything that he promised will come to pass is going to come to pass. We just have to continue to keep watching and waiting, continuing to sanctify ourselves, consecrate ourselves daily, taking up our cross, denying our flesh, doing all the things that we should do to work out our soul salvation with fear and trembling, and also to be that example unto others who may be asking, how do you do what you do? Why are you living the way that you're living? What is the end goal here? Because ultimately the end goal is to enter into New Jerusalem, is to hear, well done, my good and faithful servant. So that's basically our daily, what should be what our daily walk should look like. And I know that it's not the easiest, being around people of the world, or having to deal with people on a day-to-day basis, depending on what your vocation might be. But at the end of the day, He gives us the strength to endure each day as it comes and take each day as it is. That's why Matthew 6 is so key as well, that every day has its own burdens. So not worrying about tomorrow is key as well. Yes, and Daniel and Babylon, and I believe there is even a scripture in Daniel, Yasmin, that speaks about his people shining their light. So even in Babylon, Daniel was shining his light, and he was a witness of the Most High's kingdom. All right, so continuing, we have Matthew 13, 41 through 42, and then verses 49 through 50. So it says, the Son of Man will send out his angels, and they will gather out of his kingdom all things that offend, and those who practice lawlessness, and will cast them into the furnace of fire. There will be wailing and gnashing of teeth. So it will be at the end of the age. The angels will come forth, separate the wicked from among the just, and cast them into the furnace of fire. There will be wailing and gnashing of teeth. So we see this is what's going to happen, what was proclaimed before, and what will come. And this one, this verse right here was again just confirming the different stones that were in the priestly garment, in the ephod. And then as well, Daniel's vision, the Most High's body was like beryl. His face was like the appearance of lightning. His eyes like torches of fire. His arms and feet like burnished bronze in color, and the sound of his words like the voice of a multitude. So if we go back once again to, where's my Canva? Oh, I need to exit out of the full screen. That's so weird that it keeps doing this. Let me close this again. All right, so if we go back again here, looking at the beryl stone, this is what Daniel was describing what his vision looked like. So, or his vision of the Most High on his throne was. Very interesting, but I love that it's always a reference back to those priestly garments stones and the lively stones that were supposed to be, as stated in Peter, in the book of Peter as well. All right, so the next connection I had here, Psalm 104:24. O Adon, how manifold are your works! In wisdom you have made them all. The earth is full of your possessions. Everything that we have is here. I think that was just a moment of gratitude and worship to him. I also have this in 1 Kings 7:29 and verse 36 as well. We actually read this week when we were studying the book of Kings, but I find it interesting that the cherub have, well, actually, I wanted to point this out. So verse 10 describes the faces. No, not 10. Where is it? Here, verse 14. Yeah. So verse 14 has, the first was the face of a cherub, right? The second, the face of a man, the third, the face of a lion, and the fourth, the face of an eagle. I've searched out several translations and they all say the face of a cherub, except for the NLT and the GNT, which say ox or angel, which a cherub is an angel, of course. But Ezekiel 1, see, I'm trying to go. Okay, so here we have each had the face of a man. Each of the four had the face of a lion on the right side. Each of the four had the face of an ox. And each of the four had the face of an eagle. So here we see a man, a lion, an ox, and an eagle. And then in chapter 10, it says cherub, man, lion, and eagle. So the difference there being the ox and the cherub, although he is stating, he's recalling it's, and this is again why, as I mentioned earlier in the beginning of the study, why I'm still on the fence of the timing of everything, because he's referring to the vision he had at the river Kebar, which is the vision that he had in chapter 1 about the cherubim. So he says it twice, I believe, here in verse 15, and then in the last verse of the chapter as well, he's recalling how he saw these cherubim previously. All right. Now continuing. Oh, actually, let me read that precept that I had for First Kings. So these are this is the structure of what the temple looked like. So a part of it at least. So verse 29, it says, on the panels that were between the frames were lions, oxen, and cherubim, and on the frames was a pedestal on top. Below the lions and oxen were wreaths of plated work. On the plates of its flanks and on its panels were engraved cherubims, lions, and palm trees. Wherever there was a clear space on each with wreaths all around. What I found interesting about this was how the cherubim have these creatures as their heads. And then we also see the palm trees, which the saints that are going to be worshiping him are carrying or waving in the book of Revelation, as well as the palm trees that when Messiah entered Jerusalem, that's what the people were waving at him as he walked in, saying Hosanna, Hosanna, right? So just was something really cool that I found here, being that this temple was built prior to Ezekiel having this vision of the cherubim. Way before. All right, so we covered this part here. And again, I also wanted to point out, I think I already said this, how the cherubim moved in unison and led the wheels. So I thought that was interesting as well. And we see it as a confirmation in Ezekiel 1:20-24. It says, wherever the Spirit wanted to go, they went, because there the Spirit went, and the wheels were lifted together with them. For the Spirit of the living creatures was in the wheels. When those went, these went. When those stood, these stood. And when those were lifted up from the earth, the wheels were lifted up together with them. For the Spirit of the living creatures was in the wheels. The likeness of the firmament above the heads of the living creatures was like the color of an awesome crystal stretched out over their heads. And under the firmament, their wings spread out straight, one toward another. Each one had two which covered one side, and each one had two which covered the other side of the body. When they went, I heard the noise of their wings, like the noise of many waters, like the voice of the Almighty, a tumult like the noise of an army. And when they stood still, they let down their wings. So beautiful. Yes, Enoch had a similar vision, and I don't know why I didn't include Enoch tonight, but it's okay. I think because I went into that in the first part. Okay, that's for chapter 11. So lastly, I have here for this chapter, Sirach 43, 11-14. And it says, look upon the rainbow and praise him who made it, exceedingly beautiful in its brightness. It encircles the heaven with its glorious arc. The hands of the Most High have stretched it out. By his command, he sends the driving snow and speeds the lightnings of his judgment. Therefore, the storehouses are opened and the clouds fly forth like birds. And this is also, we know the storehouses or the portals, as mentioned also in the book of Enoch, very symbolic, of course, to the throne of heaven and everything that it represents. But yes, we see a lot of confirmation for the dome. If you know, you know the true shape of the earth and how the rainbow is a reflection of the throne of heaven. And it's a half circle. So just food for thought with that as well. All right, so that is chapter 10. Who is able to read chapter 11? Oh, I'm gonna read this really quick. Liz shared Psalm 19, and it says, "The heavens declare the glory of the Elohim, and the firmament shows his handiwork. Day unto day utters speech, and night unto night reveals knowledge. There is no speech nor language where their voice is not heard. Their line has gone out through all the earth." What is, and their words to the end of the world. In them he has set a tabernacle for the sun, which is like a bridegroom coming out of his chamber, and rejoices like a strong man to run its race. Its rising is from one end of heaven, and its circuit to the other end, and there is nothing hidden from its heat. Amen. Okay, Liz, thank you. Read first from verses 1 through 13, please.
Then the Spirit lifted me up and brought me to the east gate of the Adon's house, which faces eastward. And there at the door of the gate were 25 men, among whom I saw Jezaniah the son of Azur, and Pelatiah the son of Benaniah, princes of the people. And he said to me, Son of man, these are the men who devise iniquity and give wicked counsel in this city, who say the time is not near to build houses. This city is a cauldron, and we are the meat. Therefore prophesy against them. Prophesy, O Son of Man. Then the Spirit of the Adon fell upon me and said to me, Speak, thus says the Adon. Thus you have said, O house of Israel, for I know the things that come into your mind. You have multiplied your slain in this city, and you have filled its streets with the slain. Therefore, thus says the Adon, your Elohim, your slain whom you have laid in its midst, they are the meat, and this city is a cauldron. But I shall bring you out of the midst of it. You have feared the sword, and I will bring a sword upon you, says the Adon Elohim, and I will bring you out of its midst, and deliver you into the hands of strangers, and execute judgments on you. You shall fall by the sword. I will judge you at the border of Israel. Then you shall know that I am the Adon. This city shall not be your cauldron, nor shall you be the meat in its midst. I will judge you at the border of Israel, and you shall know that I am the Adon, for you have not walked in my statutes, nor executed my judgments, but have done according to the customs of the Gentiles, which are all around you. Now it happened, while I was prophesying, that Pelatiah the son of Benaniah died. Then I fell on my face and cried with a loud voice and said, O Adon Elohim, will you make a complete end of the remnant of Israel?
Ouch. So 25 elders were there that as he walked away after having this vision from, just like picture it. He's had these visions of the cherubim, of what they're doing to the temple. And then all of a sudden, he's told to prophesy. And I'm sure he couldn't help it. He couldn't help himself but to say everything by the Spirit, exactly how it was being downloaded onto him in that moment. So with all of that power that he brought and everything that he was saying, this happened. Pelatiah, the son of Benaniah, just falls dead. And I mean, who knows how that can be explained away, but I would just say that that was his glory, probably executing someone who was out of order, out of covenant, who called himself a priest of the Adon. So again, very important to proceed with caution, I'd say, when dealing with these people who have titles or have given themselves titles or have been given titles by their leaders. Whatever way you want to slice the cake, those individuals will be judged more harshly um, because of how they've misused the word. So going into these connections here, so we have Second Corinthians 12, verses 1 through 4. This is Paul speaking about Ezekiel. So it says, "It is doubtless not profitable for me to boast. I will come to visions and revelations of the Adon. I know a man in Christ who 14 years ago, whether in body I do not know, or whether out of body I do not know, the Elohim knows, such a one was caught up to the third heaven." I'm sorry, he's not speaking about Ezekiel here, but I would say confirming visions, like what was possible to be seen. "And I know such a man, whether in body or out of body, I do not know. The Elohim knows how he was caught up into paradise and heard inexpressible words, which it is not lawful for a man to utter." I believe he was speaking of Ezekiel, but he was so humble about it. I believe possibly he was speaking of Ezekiel in the second portion, verses 3 and 4. That's why I included it here. But yeah, it is doubtless and not profitable for me to boast. No, he was speaking of himself. Oh, okay. Okay. I didn't know that part. But in any case, he's speaking of himself in that way, and it's very similar to what the prophet Ezekiel um was able to visualize. And Ezekiel definitely was humble with the way that how do I say this? With the way that he delivered the message, humility in the sense of being obedient, because the words that he was speaking was very harsh. There was, he couldn't deliver it any other way other than how it was given to him. And then we have Revelation 1:10. This is John. But he said, "I was in the spirit on the Adon's day, and I heard behind me a loud voice as of a trumpet." And this is also in comparison to the sound of the Most High's voice here throughout these chapters. But I'm trying to look and see what specifically. Yeah, no, that's just in general. A general, not, well, it's not, no scripture is general, but just, describing what his voice sounded like and what it may have sounded like to Ezekiel as well. Then we have Isaiah 30:1 that says, "Woe to the rebellious children, says the Adon, who take counsel, but not of me, and who devise plans, but not of my spirit, that they may add sin to sin." And this is again speaking of these men, not just these men, but the people in general, who he was speaking about. And then Jeremiah 5:5, it says, "I will go to the great men and speak to them, for they have known the way of the Adon, the judgment of their Elohim. But these have altogether broken the yoke and burst the bonds." So this is similar in the sense of the leaders of the people. This is who Jeremiah was going to go speak to as well. And if you've read the book of Jeremiah, well, Jeremiah and Ezekiel prophesied around the same time, although Jeremiah prophesied for longer. And Jeremiah was hated. They really hated him because he was prophesying prior to the exile as well. So they didn't like the words that he would share. Micah 2 verses 1 through 2 says, "Woe to those who devise iniquity and work out evil on their beds. At morning light they practice it, because it is in the power of their hand. They covet fields and take them by violence, also houses, and seize them. So they oppress a man and his house, a man and his inheritance." And this is speaking also as the reference that it's what it's talking about the people here, how they are meat and the land is a cauldron. Let me see. Yeah. It says, "Your slain whom you have laid in its midst, they are the meat, and this city is a cauldron." Other translations mention the cauldron as like a pot, but if you think about it, you know, devising witchcraft and sorcery, everything that they were doing there, it's pretty fitting that the scriptures would use that kind of wording as well. We also have Jeremiah 17:10. And it says, "I, the Adon, search the heart. I test the mind, even to give every man according to his ways, according to the fruit of his doings." So this just, again, goes to show you that whatever ways you are walking in, that is exactly what the fruit or the outcome is going to be as you reap what you sow. Malachi 3:13 through 14 says, "Your words have been harsh against me, says the Adon, yet you say, what have we spoken against you? You have said, it is useless to serve the Elohim. What profit is it that we have kept his ordinance, and that we have walked as mourners before the Adon of hosts?" And this is the same mumbling and grumbling and complaining that we hear now, that we heard, that we read of back in the times of the captivity, or well, yes, in the times of captivity, but also when the Israelites were in the wilderness. I have also 2 Kings 2 verses 1 through 7. I'm not gonna read it. You can write these notes down. Write these down in your notes for between verses 7 through 11. Verse 8 in particular says, "You fear the sword, and the sword is what I will bring against you, declares the sovereign Elohim." And this is confirmation of what took place once Judah was taken into captivity. So 2 Kings 25 as a whole, I would say, I had these two portions here though, verses 1 through 7, and then verses 18 through 22. And I'll read this one because it's also a second witness. Jeremiah 52:24 through 27, that says, "The captain of the guard took Seraiah the chief priest, Zephaniah the second priest, and the 3 doorkeepers. He also took out of the city an officer who had charge of the men of war, 7 men of the king's close associates who were found in the city, the principal scribe of the army who mustered the people of the land, and 60 men of the people of the land who were found in the midst of the city. And Nebuzaradan, the captain of the guard, took these and brought them to the king of Babylon at Riblah. Then the king of Babylon struck them and put them to death at Riblah in the land of Hamath. Thus Judah was carried away captive from its own land." What I also found interesting was how he mentioned, let me see. I want to go back and look exactly where it was that I saw it. Where it says, "I will bring you out of its midst and deliver you into the hands of the strangers, and will execute judgments on you." Not only that, "You will fall by the sword. I will judge you at the border of Israel. Then you shall know that I am the Elohim." I don't know if, well, obviously we know in the past time, if we go back again to the book of Kings, and also here in Jeremiah, where it confirms they were taken out of the city and then they were executed. When New Jerusalem comes down and judgment takes place, of course, I don't know, maybe it's gonna be like a line We're gonna line up and be at the door and either get thrown into the lake of fire or enter into New Jerusalem, possibly. Um, it's interesting to think about what that's gonna look like, you know? So just putting that in perspective. I also have Amos 9, 1 through 4. And it says, And I saw the Adon standing by the altar, and he said, Strike the doorposts, that the thresholds may shake, and break them on the heads of them all. I will slay the last of them with the sword. He who flees from them shall not get away, and he who escapes from them shall not be delivered. Though they dig into hell, from there my hand shall take them. Though they climb up to heaven, from there I will bring them down. And though they hide themselves on top of Carmel, from there I will search and take them. Though they hide from my sight at the bottom of the sea, from there I will command the serpent, and it shall bite them. Though they go into captivity before their enemies, from there I will command the sword, and it shall slay them. I will set my eyes on them for harm and not for good. This sounds really crazy, you know, the different areas that people may be able to reach when they're trying to hide from judgment. They climb up to heaven, they hide themselves on the top of Carmel, they go to the bottom of the sea. I mean, it just, I don't know, that gives me a visual too of what they're capable of. And yes, exactly, the bunkers in the mountains. And it's crazy to think that that exists in real life. Um, what you see in the movies is reality. Yes, yeah. Jessica says it sounds very tormenting, like you're trying to escape something, but you cannot. And all of that to say they don't even realize that they can't. They believe that they'll be able to escape it. They believe that they'll be able to defeat biblical prophecy or overturn it somehow, change the script. And that ties in with a lot of the stuff that we have been discussing and seeing happening in at least in the US now. I know all around the world. I mean, I know people in the UK that are even talking about the presidential elections in the US because they know what is going to happen as a result of this false light coming into office, bringing in that golden age. And I have Second Thessalonians here, or First Thessalonians here for the end of the study. But, you know, them thinking that his wrath can be avoided, it's not. It won't be. We might see things looking good for a little bit, but that's only gonna be for false hope. So that those who do not have ears to hear can set their eyes on the wrong Alahim, the wrong Adon, and worship a golden calf all over again. Lastly, for this portion, I also have Psalm 106, 39 through 37. And it says, But they mingled with the Gentiles and learned their works. They served their idols, which became a snare to them. They even sacrificed their sons and their daughters to demons and shed innocent blood, the blood of their sons and daughters, whom they sacrificed to the idols of Canaan. And the land was polluted with blood. Thus they were defiled by their own works and played the harlot by their own deeds. Yeah, this is very sad. Um, and hopefully, you know, as we continue to search him and live for him, striving to do so, um, you know, we hopefully will be part of that group that doesn't have to, or that's marked, that receives the mark on our foreheads from the man in linen. So that's that portion. Liz, if you can continue and finish the chapter, please.
Okay. Sorry. Again, the word of the Adon came to me, saying, Son of man, your brethren, your relatives, your countrymen, and all the house of Israel in its entirety are those whom the inhabitants of Jerusalem have said, Get far away from the Adon. This land has been given to us as a possession. Therefore say, Thus says the Adon Alahim, although I have cast them afar, I have cast them far off among the Gentiles, and although I have scattered them among the countries, yet I shall be a little sanctuary for them in the countries where they have gone. Therefore say, Thus says the Adon Alahim, I will gather you from the peoples, assemble you from the countries where you have been scattered, and I will give you the land of Israel. And they will go there, and they will take away all its detestable things and all its abominations from there. Then I will give them one heart. I will put a new spirit within them, and take the stony heart out of their flesh, and give them a heart of flesh, and they may walk in my statutes, and keep my judgments, and do them. And they shall be my people, and I will be their Elohim. But as for those whose hearts follow the desire for their detestable things and their abominations, I will recompense their deeds on their own heads, says the Adon Elohim. So the cherubim lifted up their wings with the wheels beside them. And the glory of the Most High of Israel was high above them. And the glory of the Adon went up from the midst of the city and stood on the mountain, which is on the east side of the city. Then the Spirit took me and brought me in a vision by the Spirit of Elohim into Chaldea, to those in captivity. And the vision that I had seen went up from me. So I spoke to those in captivity of all the things the Adon had shown me.
Oof. So good because there's promises here. So of course we see in and thank you Liz for reading. So first we see here that the people of Samaria are the people in I'm sorry in Jerusalem now have certain inhabitants that because I think if I'm not mistaken there were some Chaldeans other people from other lands even from Samaria who entered in to Jerusalem once the Israelites were taken out into captivity. So they were so it says here, get far away from the Adon. This land has been given to us as a possession. They're trying to inhabit the land permanently. But then the Adon is speaking to Ezekiel and telling him, although I have cast them far off, so although I spread them out to the four corners of the earth, I have been with them. So we see that he's been comforting his remnant through his Ruach all this time, from back then, even until now, awakening his saints, awakening his people, those who are doing away with all the idol worship, all the traditions of man, living for him, keeping his commandments, which is when we go into verse 19 and verse 20, which you know these verses more from Ezekiel 36 and 26 and 27, which I am going to read them too, just because they connect. But we see it first here in Ezekiel 11. But then there's the if or when and then as well that we see after. But as for those whose hearts follow the desire of their detestable things and their abominations, they will reap what they sow. Point blank period. That's what we can take away from this study tonight and from the book of Ezekiel and from the book of Isaiah and from the book of Malachi and Hosea and Haggai and all of the prophets, major and minor alike. they all were speaking the same message. If you keep his commandments, you are going to inherit the kingdom of heaven. If you don't follow his ways, if you turn against him, yes, the entire all scriptures, this is your roadmap to have eternal life. Because if not, you are going to be thrown into the lake of fire where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. And people take that very lightly. Take that very, very lightly. But this is super serious. So let's get into the connecting scripture. So we have Isaiah 8:14. Let me. Okay. So we have Isaiah 8:14 that says, He will be as a sanctuary, but a stone of stumbling and a rock of offense to both the houses of Israel, as a trap and a snare to the inhabitants of Jerusalem. And how can we look at this scripture? There's another one in Romans as well, I believe, that has the similar wording that is referenced. I mean, it's basically quoting this precept, but him being a stone of stumbling and a rock of offense, not only is he the chief cornerstone and the firm foundation for us, but to those who refuse to heed to his word, he is also a stone of stumbling and a rock of offense. Because if we follow the world, then we're going to be stumbling. We're going to look at his word and be offended by his word. Oh, okay. Second or First Peter. I don't know why I thought it was Romans as well, but in any case, it's also spoken of by in the Gospels or the epistles, if you will. But yes, he's going to be a trap and a snare to those who choose to turn away from him. Again, also, as it happened in the Tower of Babel, Genesis 11, 7-9, it says, Come, let us go down and confuse their language, that they may not understand one another's speech. So the Adon scattered them abroad from there over the face of the earth and ceased building the city. Therefore, its name is called Babel, because the Adon confused the language of all the earth, and from there the Adon scattered them abroad over the face of all the earth. So we see that the scattering took place more than once. And in any case, it's going to continue. It's still active now. Yes, exactly, Jessica. Jessica said, just like we're all slaves, but either to righteousness or sin. And I think Yasmin had said something earlier as well, too. She said, I also think about how our heart is deceitful above all things. Exactly. I think that's in Jeremiah 17 as well, where I referenced Jeremiah 17, but not that precept. But yes, I totally agree. Our heart is deceitful and can lead us astray if we allow it to. We also have Zephaniah 3, verses 8-9, and it says, Therefore, wait for me, says the Adon, until the day I rise up for the plunder. My determination is to gather the nations to my assembly of kingdoms, to pour on them my indignation, all my fierce anger. All the earth shall be devoured with the fire of my jealousy. For then I will restore to the peoples a pure language, that they may all call on the name of the Adon to serve him with one accord. This also reminds me of the constant conflict about the name, about the calendar, about all of the petty, I would call, disagreements. Although I know we all wanna run after truth, there is a certain people that wants to be right in every sense of the word. um yes, that Hebrew is the heavenly language. It's the language of the angels. And I believe, yes, that we will be able to understand one another in the language that he intends, and also going up to worship him at the same time. We will all know the proper name to reference him as. All of these things Yes, exactly. Crying out, holy, holy, holy. I can't wait. Kadosh, kadosh, kadosh. All things will be in perfect order. Absolutely. 100% agree. Then we also have Zechariah 14:11, and it says, the people shall dwell in it, and no longer shall there be utter destruction, but Jerusalem shall be safely inhabited. And that one connects with, I want to say, also all of this is like 16, verse 16 and 17. 17 ending with, and I will give you back the land of Israel again. And yes, I agree with you. Not like the Yiddish, that Yiddish language that the the Revelation 2:9 and 3:9ers speak. Let me be specific with the terminology that I use on here. All right, continuing. I have Proverbs 18:10 as well. That says the name of the Adon is a strong tower. The righteous run to it and are safe. He is our strong tower, and he is our safety net, you know? He is who is going to rectify everything that needs to be rectified. And then also Titus 2:11 through 12 says, for the grace of the Elohim that brings salvation has appeared to all men, teaching us that denying ungodliness and worldly lusts, we should live soberly, righteously, and godly in the present age. So this is a message to us now. It mattered back then, but it matters even more so now as we approach the end times more and more. Okay, next. So I said I was going to read this, of course. So this is directly connecting to verses 18, I'm sorry, 19 and 20. So Ezekiel 36 and 26 says, I will give you a new heart and put a new spirit within you. I will take the heart of stone out of your flesh and give you a heart of flesh. I will put my spirit within you and cause you to walk in my statutes, and you will keep my judgments and do them. And I feel like I really love this chapter. This chapter 36 is the reason why I named my youngest Ezekiel. So it's very close to my heart. Um, Even though I didn't know as much as I know now, I was already on my way to truth in 2020. And I feel like he started a process in me of giving me a new heart and putting a new spirit in me in that time. So I give him all praises and all glory to the Most High, because this verse, this chapter, and the whole book of Ezekiel now, it's coming. I'm sorry, I get a little like emotional thinking about it, because it's coming so much more alive now, reading these chapters, reading these verses, and really seeing how much Abba really loves us, how he has desired to transform us back to the original intent from the beginning. And over again, so many people have chosen to turn away from him and to deny his existence and to deny biblical prophecy that is unfolding before our very eyes. And and that is why Messiah spoke as Isaiah did, as Messiah quoted Isaiah, that hearing they will not hear, seeing they will not see. And that is why we need to remain vigilant. Yes, and to turn a blind eye to his truth and follow after the gods of this world, it's so sad, it's so heartbreaking. We make fun of it, right? Like we laugh it off, talking about how these people worship are basically doing golden calf worship right now, or how you see people going to concerts and idolizing these artists. And these very artists are the same ones that are being used for the agenda of controlling the masses. It's predictive programming all around in every sense of the word. Yet again, people do not want to see. They don't want to open their eyes. They want to continue to drink of the cup of iniquity, to drown their sorrows, to drown the pain, to ignore the refinement that the Most High is trying to take all of us through. So, for those of you who feel like you are in pain every day, just watching this world crumbling around you, for those of you who feel that conviction to continue to proclaim His truth and searching within yourself, seeing all of those ugly things, because I know that it's painful. I know that it's hard to search within yourself and realize that you're wrong in so many different areas of your life, but choosing to take the higher road and walk the straight and narrow path, seek the ancient paths, and start keeping his Torah. If this is your first year keeping his appointed times, if you're starting to keep his Sabbath, if you're eating clean foods, keeping the food laws, you're on the right path and he is well pleased. Just keep going. Just keep going. That's all I can say. Which it takes me to Ezekiel 37:23, which is where a lot of us are still here. Where this is where we are. Like literally, I feel like we're all living out the book of Ezekiel right now. Those of us who are in covenant with the Most High. Verse 23 of chapter 37 says, they shall not defile themselves any more with their idols, nor with their detestable things, nor with any of their transgressions, but I will deliver them from all their dwelling places in which they have sinned and will cleanse them. Then they shall be my people and I will be their Elohim. This chapter is the valley of the dry bones, and it's a vision of his people being awakened. So how much more fitting to what we're talking about right now. This book is truly so beautiful. And then lastly, well, no, I think I have a few. Yeah, I have one more after this. I have Jeremiah 24:7, and it says, then I will give them a heart to know me, that I am their Adon, and they shall be my people, and I will be their Elohim, for they shall return to me with their whole heart. That's what's happening now, my people. Then lastly, for this chapter, we have Zechariah 14:4, and it says, and in that day his feet will stand on the Mount of Olives, which faces Jerusalem on the east, and the Mount of Olives shall be split in two, from east to west, making a very large valley. Half of the mountain shall move toward the north, and half of it toward the south. So that just making this connection with the last portion here of this chapter, where the cherubim moved. They stood on the mountain, which was on the east side. And this is speaking about the Mount of Olives being split from east to west. So his glory will be on the east side. Half of the mountain shall move toward the north and half of it to the south. All right, so that concludes chapter 11 for us. And who can read chapter 12? Last chapter of the night. Okay, Jess, thank you. You can go ahead and read through verse 20, please.
Okay. Now the word of the Adon came to me, saying, Son of man, you dwell in the midst of a rebellious house, which has eyes to see but does not see, and ears to hear but does not hear, for they are a rebellious house. Therefore, son of man, prepare your belongings for captivity, and go into captivity by day in their sight. You shall go from your place into captivity to another place in their sight. It may be that they will consider, though they are a rebellious house. By day you shall bring out your belongings in their sight as though going into captivity, and at evening you shall go in their sight like those who go into captivity. Dig through the wall in their sight and carry your belongings out through it. In their sight you shall bear them on your shoulders and carry them out at twilight. You shall cover your face so that you cannot see the ground, for I have made you a sign in the house of Israel. So I did as I was commanded. I brought out my belongings by day as though going into captivity, and at evening I dug through the wall with my hand. I brought them out at twilight, and I bore them on my shoulders in their sight. And in the morning the word of the Adon came to me, saying, Son of man, has not the house of Israel, the rebellious house, said to you, What are you doing? Say to them, Thus says the Adon Elohim, this burden concerns the prince of Jerusalem and all the house of Israel who are among them. Say, I am a sign to you. As I have done, so shall it be done to them. They shall be carried away into captivity. And the prince who is among them shall bear his belongings on his shoulder at twilight and go out. They shall dig through the wall to carry them out through it. He shall cover his face and so that he cannot see the ground with his eyes. I will also spread my net over him, and he shall be caught in my snare. I will bring him to Babylon, to the land of the Chaldeans, yet he shall not see it, though he shall die there. I will scatter to every wind all who are around him to help him, and all his troops, and I will draw out the sword after them. Then they shall know that I am the Most High, when I scatter them among the nations, and disperse them throughout the countries. But I will spare a few of their men from the sword, from famine, and from pestilence, that they may declare all their abominations among the Gentiles wherever they go. Then they shall know that I am the Most High.
Yeah, you can pause there, Jess. Thank
Okay.
you. I don't know why my NIV is split a little differently, but these are more fitting to go with the rest. All right, so just to recap this chapter really quick, so we see once again Ezekiel is doing another demonstration, another physical demonstration, which he was mimicking, so I guess one of the princes, which I believe was Zedekiah, if I'm not mistaken, or Jeconiah. I think it was Jeconiah when I went back to look. But in the beginning, as I was just mentioning, and I forgot that I had included this precept, and it says it here also. So we have verse 2 tying in with Isaiah 6:9, Matthew 13:13, Jeremiah 5:21, and also Mark 4:12. So a lot of the same quoting of what basically what was happening. So Isaiah 6:9, and he said, Go and tell this people, keep on hearing, but do not understand, keep on seeing, but do not perceive. Matthew 13:13 says, Therefore I speak to them in parables, because seeing they do not see, and hearing they do not understand, hearing they do not hear, nor do they understand. Jeremiah 5:21, Hear this now, O foolish people without understanding, who have eyes and see not, and who have ears and hear not. Then Mark 4:12, so that seeing they may see and not perceive, and hearing they may hear and not understand, lest they should turn and their sins be forgiven them. So again, a lot of connections and quoting, but it all means the same thing. And I guess the repetition here means something too, right? We also see in Ephesians 4:18, it says, having their understanding darkened, being alienated from the life of the Elohim because of the ignorance that is in them, because of the blindness of their heart. And I also think about them being given over to reprobate minds, the people, because of their hardness of heart. So it's, he allows it, But in his mercy also, he is still pulling and awakening others from that slumber. And Liz said, real prophets look super crazy to normies. Imagine a prophet like Ezekiel in our day. They would exactly, yes, they would send him to the psych unit. He would get so canceled. Yes, absolutely. Because the truth hurts. Um, and we see it, I mean, man, like over and over again. So we see again in 2 Corinthians 3:14, but their minds were blinded, for until this day the same veil remains unlifted in the reading of the Old Testament, because the veil is taken away in Yasha HaMashiach. Man, like it's, and then again, Acts 7:51-52. You stiff-necked and uncircumcised in heart and ears. You always resist the Holy Spirit as your fathers did, so do you. Which of the prophets did your fathers not persecute? And they killed those who foretold the coming of the just one, of whom you now have become betrayers and murderers. All right. So I also wanted to include Hebrews 11:13 that says, these all died in faith, not having received the promises, but having seen them afar off, were assured of them, embraced them, and confessed that they were strangers and pilgrims on earth. And this one ties in with verse 3, just in the sense of thinking about those who are coming back into covenant with him, or have come into covenant with him, but have not seen the promise fulfilled yet. And that's something that I've said it before, and I say it over and over again. For me, I feel like even if I were not to make it, which Abba willing, I will, I want to plant enough seeds in my children to know that I did everything that I possibly could for the promise to be fulfilled through their generation. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's just where my heart is at. I really, I care for my soul salvation, but they're my children. They were the disciples that were entrusted unto me first and foremost, my first ministry. So when I think about why I do what I do, it's all for them. And I pray that I am showing them the right example with everything that I do as well. Checking my heart daily because momming ain't easy, if you know. um, and then I have 2 Kings 25 verses 4-5, which I referenced 2 Kings 25 before. And this is just a small portion of it. So I'll go ahead and read this portion, which says, then the city, and this is confirmation once again to what ended up taking place. Then the city wall was broken through, and all the men of war fled at night by way of the gate between two walls, which was by the king's garden, even though the Chaldeans were still encamped all around against the city. And the king went by way of the plain, but the army of the Chaldeans pursued the king, and they overtook him in the plains of Jericho. All his army was scattered from him. Okay. Then I have Jeremiah 22. Yeah, this one still ties in there. Verses 8-9, and it says, and many nations will pass by this city, and everyone will say to his neighbor, why has the Adon done so to this great city? Then they will answer, because they have forsaken the covenant of the Adon their Elohim and worshipped other gods and served them. And that goes back to the end of this section. Let me see. Yeah, basically just, well, I would say this whole portion, because this is all talking about their end result for their rebellion. All right. So that's the end of that part. And Jess, if you can just finish the rest of the chapter, please.
Okay. Moreover, the word of the Adon came to me, saying, Son of man, eat your bread with quaking, and drink your water with trembling and anxiety, and say to the people of the land, Thus says the Adon Elohim to the inhabitants of Jerusalem and to the lands of Israel. They shall eat their bread with anxiety and drink their water with dread, so that her land may be emptied of all who are in it, because of the violence of all who dwell in it. Then the cities that are inhabited shall be laid waste, and the land shall become desolate, and you shall know that I am the Most High. And the word of the Adon came to me, saying, Son of man, what is this proverb that you people have about the land of Israel, which says, The days are prolonged, and every vision falls? Tell them, therefore, Thus says the Adon Elohim, I will lay this proverb to rest, and they shall no more use it as a proverb in Israel. But say to them, The days are at hand, and the fulfillment of every vision. For no more shall there be any false vision or flattering divination within the house of Israel. For I am the Adon, I speak, and the word which I speak will come to pass. It will no longer, no, it will no more be postponed. For in your days, O rebellious house, I will say the word and perform it, says the Adon Elohim. Again, the word of the Adon came to me, saying, Son of man, look, the house of Israel is saying, the vision that he sees is for many days from now, and he prophesies a times far off. Therefore say to them, Thus says the Adon Elohim, none of my words will be postponed any more, but the word which I speak will be done, says the Most High.
Oof. This is like, I don't know if you guys are seeing it, but this is people even now that are like, oh, you guys have been saying that Messiah is coming back for 2000 years, right? We see it every day. We see it every day when the negative is prophesied or the truth is spoken. People laugh and were ridiculed and called crazy. Yes, the scoffers and those who go against every word that is uttered by the Most High. But you see that he is not even he's also not pleased with that. So his judgment is inevitable. So I'm gonna just read a few more connecting precepts to close out the study for tonight. Um, we have first Zechariah 7:14 that says, But I will scatter them with a whirlwind among the nations which they had not known. Thus the land became desolate after them, so that no one passed through or returned, for they made the pleasant land desolate. So you see the other demonstration that Ezekiel does here of eating his bread with quaking and drinking his water with trembling and anxiety. This is just showing like what a famine and hard times would look like. Yes, as in the days of Noah, Yasmin, Noah was called crazy until the flood came, right? He and again, we've spoken about this before. Like imagine preaching for 120 years of something coming and it doesn't happen. And it doesn't happen, and he doesn't know when it's gonna happen. He just trusts the process and is allowing himself to be used by the Most High. But then it actually does happen. A flood comes and everybody dies. So yeah, it's the same. Yes, he had faith, just like Abraham had faith, just like the fathers of the faith who trusted in the word of the Most High, doubted not, and walked in his ways no matter what. And I think that that's what it boils down to when you think about it, because even the kings, when they were given that power, some of them, a handful of them, as we know, started out righteously. They followed the ways of the Most High. Many of them tore down the high places and eventually went back and did wrong things. Um, I would say maybe doubt came in, something, a snare entrapped them somehow to cause them to doubt the power of the Most High and think that it would be okay for them to go against his word. Yes, exactly. They got too comfortable. So that again, it just confirms that this life is not meant to be comfortable. We're not meant to live a cushy, prosperous life with all of the material things that our hearts desire, that are pleasing to the eye. We have to keep our eyes set on the heavens. And yeah, we're gonna suffer now because of the fall of man, because of the original sin. I mean, can you imagine if Adam and Eve didn't sin? We'd all be light beings, right? Or however it is. However, whatever it is that we were meant to be originally. Yeah, you wouldn't have to press that little button on your hip, Yasmin. Sorry, Yasmin had an interesting dream one night where Yasmin, you want to tell the dream really quick? Because I just think it's really funny.
All of it or just the part where I
No,
flew?
just that part, just that one part.
So I basically, at one point, I pressed my hip and then I flew away. And I was like,
She didn't want to
I
deal
was,
with the world.
huh?
You didn't want to deal with the world, right?
I didn't want to deal with questions.
There you go. So, I mean, we things would be different if Adam and Eve had not sinned. Point blank. All right. So, Joel 2:1 says, Blow the trumpet in Zion and sound an alarm in my holy mountain. Let all the inhabitants of the land tremble, for the day of the Adon is coming, for it is at hand. And I love the book of Joel because the book of Joel speaks about the latter days, the end times where his people will be awakened and they will speak for him, have the visions and dream the dreams, and his spirit would come upon those who are seeking him. Um, and then this confirms what I was referring to about he is not pleased with those who don't trust in his timing or even in his words of warning. 2 Peter 3 verses 3-7 says, knowing this first, that scoffers will come in the last days. Oh, and this is what Jess actually said. Walking according to their own lusts and saying, where is the promise of his coming? For since the fathers fell asleep, all things continue as they were from the beginning of creation. For this they willfully forget that by the word of Elohim the heavens were of old, and the earth standing out of water and in the water, by which the world that then existed perished, being flooded with water. But the heavens and the earth, which are now preserved by the same word, are reserved for fire until the day of judgment and perdition of ungodly men. So that also speaks to what I was saying earlier about the coals of fire, and everything that is to come in the end times as part of the judgment. That volcano sounds more and more real when you think about it. Summing it up to say, Matthew 24:13, but he who endures to the end shall be saved. And this is a precept that a lot of us have been sharing recently. And it says, for you yourselves know perfectly that the day of the Adon so comes as a thief in the night. For when they say peace and safety, then sudden destruction comes upon them as labor pains upon a pregnant woman, and they shall not escape. But you, brethren, are not in the darkness, so that this day should overtake you as a thief. And finally, Revelation 16:15, that says, behold, I am coming as a thief. Blessed is he who watches and keeps his garments, lest he walk naked and they see his shame. Again, as I mentioned earlier in this study, nakedness is akin to sin. So we are to make sure that our garments are washed and clean so that we may wear those white robes and be those who are in the midst of him saying, holy, 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 for the rest of our days. With that being said, thank you for joining this study tonight. Once again, I pray that this was edification for you and confirmation of how you should be walking in this realm, awaiting for our Messiah's return. Shalom.